Welcome back to the Creative Connection. I am here today with a special guest, Lorraine Keeling of Quantum Creator Therapy and Awaken. Is it Awaken to Your Life?
Awaken to life.
Awaken to Life, where we look at joy, abundance, and how we can just be more aware and in tune to what's going on. Lorraine, why don't we start by you taking a brief moment or two and sharing a little bit about what all that means? Because it's a lot of words, but what is really the meaning behind that?
Really, what it comes down to is tuning into your higher self, your true purpose. What do you want out of life? And this, for me, this was part of my journey that I started in 2010 with hypnotherapy. And I went on to learn lots of different holistic therapies, including EFT and NLP, became a Reiki master. I started teaching quantum regression integration therapy. And then last year, I created Quantum Creator Therapy for those people, those souls that want to go beyond the subconscious and really delve deep into the superconscious mind and tuning into your own innate wisdom, not taking it from anybody else or third parties, but what is true for you, which is different for everybody.
So
And of course,
true.
there's lots of similarities. However, everyone's why is different for them and unique.
Yeah. I've been doing a lot of work myself around this idea of why. Not just personally, but with the clients that I work with. And I also direct theatrical productions. And the one that we're doing right now, that's actually the theme. Why does anyone really do what they do? What is the reason behind it? So, you know, springboarding off of that in your work and since 2010, even on your own journey, um, as I was reviewing some of your things, you speak about awakening to life and abundance. How do you see that inner shift translating into how people show up in their life, namely for themselves, with their families, in community, and then beyond that, maybe to the work that they do creatively or otherwise, maybe in collaboration? Now, that's a big, juicy question. So there's a lot of pieces in that. But I think if we break it down to what what is this idea of awakening to life and abundance and how that's connected to an inner shift in all of us and how we show up, period.
Well, when you start to really feel the abundance, you start to appreciate everything that you already have. So there's an abundance everywhere, you know. Even today in England, we've had an abundance of sunshine. I'm grateful for that. And there's an abundance of, your friends, your family, all the things that you have to be grateful for. And when you're putting out that vibration of gratitude, the universe brings things for you to be grateful for. So you're kind of going on an upward spiral. And what you focus your attention on is what you're going to get more of ultimately.
Mm, yes. So where your attention goes, your energy goes and
Yeah.
flows. And if we focus on abundance and joy, even if it's something really, really small. I shared before we began that I start my day in my backyard, sitting on my back deck, and just rain or shine. I am in the greater Seattle area, so our weather is very similar to your weather there. And rain or shine, I'm out there, and it's the noticing of even the small bit of nature and how it shifts me with that noticing. Would you agree that that is a great place for us to notice
Definitely.
abundance?
Yes, because nature's always abundant, even when it's in a state of change. So, as the seasons change, nature is abundant in the leaves that fall from the trees, which then become part of the cycle. And then we have the springtime with the abundance of all the new flowers. And particularly now at the moment, there's an abundance of cherry blossom. And it's that energy and the appreciation And
Mm,
some people think of abundance as in just in terms of material things, but that's not it. It's really the vibration of the energy of abundance.
yeah.
That is really important, particularly when you're focusing on nature.
Yeah. Well, and as um, a person who works with artists of all kinds, I notice that when they are attuned to the abundance of life that's around them, they're actually drawing or manifesting more creativity. And an interesting experience this last week with a former client that reached out to me and said, you know, Cyndi, I started to do some of those things about going out in nature, something that you and I talked about before we began as well. And I was hoping that I would meet someone that could help me with something. And that person came across my path.
Yeah, it's putting it out there and it's knowing that the outcome that you desire is already there. It's about aligning to it. So your energetic vibration.
Yeah.
So it's say, for example, the reverse is true. If you come across people that are always complaining, always moaning, they are the ones that always have more things to moan about. And that's a downward spiral. And they actually are creating more things to moan about because
Yeah.
that's their vibration. That's where they're at.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, and you would probably agree with this, but maybe not. So let me ask you, if we are in that abundant cycle versus that negative cycle, or vis-a-vis, we're in the negative and not in the abundant, that there's other things in our life that begin to shift, like health and relationships and work and um, finances, even. All of these things are tied to a level of energy, and we can welcome in with joy and abundance no matter what it is. Or we can
Yeah.
choose to resist and push away, which in turn then will resist and push away and cause a negative outcome in our lives. Would you agree with that?
Yes. And some people, if something's missing or if they've lost out on something, to see it as a space for something better to come in
Mm,
rather than, say I've lost my job, for example, if that were to happen, see it as an opportunity, as an open door for something better to turn up in your life.
yeah, yeah.
Quite often that happens, it creates space. So I have a part time office job, which used to be full time last year. And so when I dropped 2 days of the office job, it's created space for the therapy work and working with clients and doing the festivals and all these things to start to grow. So it's a gradual shift. Now, some people, it happens very quickly. They'll just have a sudden and dramatic change in their life. And some people go a bit more steadily and they'll gradually make the transition from one thing to another.
Right.
And, it can happen with groups of friends as well. You might find that, say, for example, you may have been a student and you've been drinking too much alcohol and this kind of thing, and it doesn't align with you anymore. And as you grow
Mm,
up, you'd rather have, like your traditional ceremonial cacao to drink and high vibration energy drinks. And certain groups of friends will just naturally drift away and you'll attract new people who have similar interests if you're more focused on well-being and spiritual growth. And you can find that your whole group of people around you can transform over several years.
mm,
Now,
yeah,
some will move with you on the path and some will just drift away.
yeah,
And that happens a lot.
yeah. And I find that our ability to be open to the shift can help or hinder us. So it will help us if we are open. But if we have a really small opening, it's going to be very resistant to make the whole shift. Um,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's about surrendering without having the knowledge. You don't need to know all the details. You need to
Mm,
trust that you're going in the right direction.
yeah.
And if you feel a match or some people will notice energetically within the body what's called, the spiritual goosebumps. So you might get a tingling sensation if something's really right for you,
Yeah.
and trust in it, even though you don't know all the details. Trust that that's right, and things will fall into place rather than trying to go, swim upstream instead of going with the flow.
Yeah. So, and I think about this, what's coming to mind for me is the communities that we are a part of. So, we are individuals on this planet, but we are also a part of a larger community. And I think our energy helps to feed, or for lack of a better word, kill a community depending upon what's happening. And I've noticed with myself, I'll just sort of throw this out there in case there's anyone listening that might resonate with this, that there are certain communities that I have belonged to, but as my energy is shifting and that community is not shifting with me, I am finding myself, because I wasn't necessarily attached, but there were people in that community that I had a strong connection with, that I'm finding that there's a level of shift and at the same time grief, because this community is not my community anymore. And being open to that idea that you just shared, which is being open to, there's something else out there. There is another community or group that is more along the lines of where I am on my path as a spiritual being, a human being on a spiritual path, that if I force myself to stay in this thing, that because there are people in it,
Yeah.
it's going to slow me down. Would you agree that that is?
Yeah, it can slow you down, and you can end up having that underlying feeling of resentment that
Mm,
in a way you're being held back.
yeah, yeah,
And it's just taking the leap of faith, and it's letting go of any judgment. There's no, one group's better than another. It's just a different vibrational match.
yes,
And
100%. Yeah.
a friend of mine that's recently moved from London to Edinburgh and has found kind of a completely new set of people from going to dance groups or spiritual drumming groups, and very uplifting in a way. So even though you find yourself in a completely different city with a different set of people, when you change the environment, there's more opportunities to make new connections.
Yeah.
So I work in lots of different places, and I do retreats abroad as well as in the UK. So I will connect with different people and bring together. I'm going on one next week actually to Anglesey in Wales. So there's just a group of 13 of us just doing a shared holiday retreat. And some
Mhm.
people I know, some people I don't. So it's a nice opportunity to have a mix of people all doing different holistic therapies. And
Yeah.
then, you find that you resonate more with some people than with others.
Yeah.
And this is how I start to build more collaborations, and maybe I'll do little events, 1 day events with people there. And I work a lot with sound healers as well.
Mm,
See, in my work, I'll sometimes do like cacao dance and trance events, and it blends really well with sound healing. So
yes.
you're covering the mind, body, spirit, and the soul all
Yeah.
in 1 day event. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So I have a sort of a question that's sort of spurned out of all of this, and that is our attachment to things. And we often hear in our spiritual communities, and I'm not talking about religious, I'm talking about spiritual communities. We often hear in our spiritual communities that attachment, if we remain attached to something, that's going to cause us more pain because we're holding on so tight. And I think about this idea that we've begun with, which is the abundance idea and the energy, going where energy flows. And, are we on a path of abundance and having that open to what's happening around us? And I think about, and I don't know what it's like in the UK, but here in the United States, you probably are aware that there's an awful lot of materialism and there's an awful lot of attachment to our things, which then translates to a sense of worth, and how we begin to feel about where we are in relationship to other people. And I've found for myself and the clients that I work with that attachment and that sense of worth based on the attachments that we have, whether it be with a person or a group or a thing or an idea or a career. And then when that all comes falling down, we find ourselves in that negative spiral. So the question that I'm thinking about in here is, what is the cost that will either spurn negative feelings, or if we could learn to release and go with the abundance, what's the cost to our belief about ourselves, our sense of worth, our sense of who we are? And I think underneath all of this is where we get taken off our journey with relationship to our gifts and our
Yeah,
reason why we're here. So
it's a
again,
good
that's
question.
another big juicy question, but there's something in there. Yeah.
While you were talking, what came to mind was something I read years ago from Wayne Dyer, and he was talking about, you know, the more he gave things away, he kept giving things away to family, friends, and anyone who needed it. Things would come back many times, and he would just find that when he was clinging on and having attachments, it stopped the flow.
Mm.
In a way, it puts the brakes on abundance if you're holding on to things and being attached. Whereas when you are freely giving without any expectation, it comes back to you because you're in a state of flow and it flows more easily. And also, if you're resisting things, there's an expression, what you resist persists.
Mm.
So again, it's trusting and going with the flow and surrendering. And also the energy of being attached is a fear-based energy.
Mm. Mm.
It's the same with some people, they talk about needing to be protected spiritually, when really you are a divine being of light and you can let go of the idea of needing to be protected because that implies there's something to be afraid of. And if you replace that with having healthy energetic boundaries, so the
Mm.
energy of a healthy boundary is a much higher vibration than feeling scared and needing to be protected. And it's the same with the attachments. If you let go and let it flow, you're creating space for something better to flow in.
Mm. So a thought occurred to me while you were saying that. And what about the person that might be listening that goes, okay, I understand what a boundary is, but what is a healthy boundary?
It's, what came to mind there is the people pleasing.
Mm.
Some people, they are too giving and they give so much that they end up completely exhausted and then they can't help anybody. They need to help themselves first. So it's remembering that while you're treating everybody with love and compassion, that you can say no to them in order to say yes to yourself, or you can say not right now because
Mm-hmm.
I need to respect my own needs as well. And then
Yeah.
say, well, maybe we can do this at another time and I can help you, or I can refer you to someone who can help you right now. So
Yeah.
it's about making sure that you look after yourself in a healthy way and you don't end up feeling depleted and drained by other people.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a practice for some because they were brought up in an environment that there weren't a lot of healthy boundaries. And maybe they were, but then they entered another environment or another community somewhere in their career, maybe, or a community that they belong to, where in order to be a part of the crowd, which, the ego wants us to be liked and it wants us to be protected and it wants us all of these things for us, thinking that it's helping us, when in fact, we need to learn to listen to that and then consider our own essence. And is this really protecting me right now? Or do I need to say, thank you so much. I hear what you're saying, and maybe you just need to stay here for just a moment. I promise I'll come back, but I'd like to go try this other thing for a moment, which takes a skill and a practice to do.
It does take a lot of practice, but once you start to do that, I know I've done it myself.
Yeah.
And I still occasionally say yes too often, and then I have to think to myself, actually, is that yes
Yeah.
better towards me rather than towards them? So
Yeah.
there's occasionally times when, you know, I'm in two minds, and then I have to just, if I'm slightly unsure, what I'll sometimes do, I'll toss a coin and I'll say, well, if it's tails, it's this, and then see how I feel. If I think, oh, I wish it had gone the other way, then there's your true answer.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Those wishes, it's interesting that you say that, because those wishes, in fact, I was mentioning this to someone the other day, the wishes are your intuition reminding you that it's here. And sometimes it's good to listen to the intuition and not always be so logical and practical, and to not always go with what you think the mainstream wants you to say, but more what you want. And that's more in tune with your heart's desire, and I think your essence and your beingness connected to what's happening around. And I think that is a practice that we as consumerists have gotten out of habit of, the idea of really sitting with the thought of, do I really need this? Do I really want this? Is this what I desire right now? Versus, oh, I have to have it. There's a breakdown in that, giving yourself time to ask that question. Given how I feel in this moment, what do I want to do?
Yeah, and there's a lady, I've forgotten the name. She's written the book about how to declutter, and she encourages people to, take all everything out of the wardrobe, put it in the middle of the floor, held up an item of clothing as it is. Do I want this? Does it bring me joy?
Yeah,
If
Marie Kondo. Yeah,
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 and it,
yeah, yeah,
yeah, notice what's true for you, regardless of what anybody else thinks. Saying, "Oh,
yeah,
well, that's a nice designer bag. You should want that." But
yeah,
you might be better with, something handcrafted that's got some heart in it. My
yeah.
boyfriend bought me this lovely little pendant
Mm-hmm.
carved with an owl on it from Peru, made
Mm,
out of a seed. And it's just because it's got an owl and I've got kind of a connection to owls.
mm,
That's thoughtful. That's kind of more meaningful
yeah,
than just, something bought off the shelf.
yeah. That makes me think back. My husband and we are about to celebrate our 42nd wedding anniversary. And our first several years of marriage, we were money poor. because we were going to graduate school, and we were living that very austere life, very, very, very simple, very, very no bibs and bobs and whatnots. And we made all of our gifts for the first 5 years. And I was telling him recently, I said, I miss that time when you would make that thing, you'd find one little thing maybe at a farmer's market, and then you created something around that had a lot of meaning for who we were and whatnot. So we kind of made a pact. I'm about to be 65. He is 65. And we sort of said, well, maybe we should go back to those simpler times, when we thought, when we retired, whenever that was. So we were 22 and 23 when we got married. When we retire, we're going to live on a sailboat and we're going to sail around the world singing folk songs. That was our vision. And remembering those things, I think, opens the door to abundance and the idea of abundancy. And I'm curious, when someone comes to you and they want to experience this joy of abundant belief, mindset, but they are coming from the pigeonhole of scarcity, and you've got it. I want a lot, but I only have this much space. What is something that someone could do when they come to you? A really simple thought, idea, practice that they could do to begin to open the door a little bit, the aperture a little bit wider, so that they can let in abundance and sort of melt away the scarcity idea.
So there's a few different techniques I use that I can do with a client that they can then continue when they're at home. So one of them is, once they're in a deeper level of trance, they can use what's called the cinema technique, which is a very popular technique, and you can visualize the version of you that you are ready to create. That's already there. You want to align to it, and you notice all the details. You use that creative part of you and that version of yourself that is enjoying an abundant life of joy and purpose. And they've got, where maybe it's an abundance of friends, and they visualize themselves, having a meal with 20 different people. And then they can go on from that. And I take them into kind of like different rooms and different areas along the timeline. And there's a very easy technique that anybody can do, and it's called the next chapter of your life. So you can do this in trance or physically. Take a pen and a paper. It's better doing it with a pen rather than just typing it on a computer, because it flows much better then. So you write down what you choose and what you are grateful for in the next chapter of your life, as though it is a fact and it's already happened. So I'm grateful for all these opportunities in my life that I have to create a life of joy and purpose. I'm grateful that I have this amazing job which fills me with joy. I'm grateful for my children, for example. If you're wanting to have children, you can write down, I'm grateful for the fun time I had with my children, holidays, or for whatever you would like to be grateful for, and picture those people in your life. And then there's another technique which takes you to the last day on earth. So it's, how do you feel? And you look around you, who's around you. So it could well be people that you haven't even met yet, but you energetically get to feel that you are with these loving souls and the life you've created. It may well be that you're thinking of moving to a place by the sea. And so this day on earth, you're spending it with friends, family, you're ready, you know that you're going. And you've got the opportunity to look back, as there's something that I didn't do. And, moving timelines, and now's the opportunity to do it. Letting your future self let you know this is your opportunity now. Do it now.
Yeah.
Don't keep waiting, and really choose to create, because you are the creator of your own life.
Mm, absolutely. I've done both of those exercises, so I know the power behind both of those. Um, yeah, yeah. So I'm thinking about the so my belief is that we have two ears and one mouth. Listening more rather than talking. And I'm curious what in your world and your work, what role does listening play to a person's transformation to creating the life, and I'm going to use my business name here, creating the life that they are passionate about living? What role does listening play, and what are we listening to and for in our lives?
Well, sometimes it's not about what is being said, it's about listening and noticing what isn't being said. Maybe there's something that's being avoided that someone's afraid to say.
Mm,
And it's kind of, if a client hesitates before saying something because there's a fear behind it, what is it that they're not saying? And it's encouraging them gently. Is there something else you'd like to add to that?
yeah,
And it's listening for the, how can I put it? It's listening for a change in vibration.
mm,
So when a client is really passionate, sometimes their voice will speed up, or they sound really, really enthusiastic, and it's the tone as well as what they're saying. And when it's something that someone else has put upon them, they might use words like should. If someone
yeah,
says, oh, I should really, they don't want to do it. It's from somebody else, it's external. If they say, I choose to do something, it's coming from them.
yeah,
And it's using the clean language rather than words that are kind of imply that they feel obliged to do what's the norm, if you like.
yeah.
For example, there's certain people that have, maybe they've got both parents are doctors or lawyers or things like that, and they get pushed into that kind of
Mm,
role when really they want to be, a singer or a musician or an artist or something creative, something that brings them joy. And maybe that the parents are saying, don't do that. But
mhm,
I think it's the people around that listen as well. And there are some people, when you have a conversation, they're not really listening. They're just thinking about how they are going to reply rather than really tuning in to what's being said.
yeah,
Yeah, definitely look at what isn't being said, I think, is one of the most important things.
yeah. Or what shows up too. I know for me, if I am in a space and a place and I'm trying to figure out why I'm here, first of all, stop thinking that, because you're not there. If you're so then as I've brought myself back to the space and the place, I start to look at what else is in the space. Is there something that I hadn't noticed before? And what does that mean to what's happening? Um, I was this last fall directing a show, and it had a lot of younger, energetic beings in it. A lot of middle schoolers were in it. And I was trying to decide whether I wanted to continue to work with this age, or what did I want to do. And I it I'm not sure why I was contemplating letting that age group go, because I find that when I am with them, they grow by leaps and bounds, and you never know what's going to come back someday, right? You don't know who's going to come back to you and say something about how something you did helped them do X, Y, and Z. But I was contemplating giving up this age group and working with this age group, and I must have been tapped, and I call it a God wink. I must have had 6 or 7 different God winks over the course of 2 weeks about this opportunity to work with a middle school, not just in my environment, but a middle school, to help them with something. And it kept coming and kept coming and kept coming. And so I went, okay, fine. Clearly, this is a message from the universe that I need to check out. So I reached out to the people, told them who I was, and immediately they said, "You are the person we have been looking for." And that's an example of listening to the things that are showing up when you're sitting with a question that you're not sure about the answer. And I think
Yeah.
that's an opportunity where we're using the 2 ears and the 2 eyes rather than spewing out, no, no, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do it. It's the word just escaped me. It is becoming one with what's happening. It is that flow energy of the universe and what it's inviting in. And, while it may not have been for me, it was definitely for those kids. And how I know that is because their leaders, their parent leaders, came to me afterwards and said, "You have no idea how much impact you've had on them. We want you to come back." So I did meditation, I did dance, I did movement, ultimately in putting on a play and teaching them different things about how to honor themselves and their behaviors and their boundaries. And it was a group of kids that have all different things happening in their life on many different levels. And I gave them survival skills to go into their levels. So on that note, as the last couple of questions, as you think about this idea of abundance, where does creativity and creative expression come with relationship to abundance?
It's tuning into your heart center and settling with it and asking for the inspiration to come through. And it's not being afraid to kind of take a completely different path or to change direction. If you're on a particular path and that inspiration and the creativity comes through and saying, actually, it's not a straightforward path, you can do a complete 90-degree turn and start going in a different direction. And you might come across something that you hadn't explored before. So there might be something to add into your therapy. Say, for example, you're a holistic therapist, like me, for example, starting with the hypnotherapy and then becoming more creative with all the different skills and just kind of taking time to learn something else, like becoming a Reiki master. And it might be a sidestep, but it's going to expand and it creates ripples as you really develop your own intuition, your creativity.
Yeah.
And the more those ripples flow out from you, the more you kind of resonate with a wider group of people.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So it can be an abundance of skills when you start really being open to different opportunities. So there's time to kind of take action and there's time to go within. So it's creating the balance and allowing yourself time to be present,
Yeah.
time to take action. Because I was reading a book about going beyond doing a vision board, calling it an action board.
Mm.
So when you've got all the things that you're choosing to create in your vision board, tuning into a particular item on it. What's the action I can take that will take me closer to that?
Yeah.
And allowing the abundance of energy and inspiration and the abundance of ideas to just flow through
Yeah.
when you sit and take time. Sometimes taking a quiet 10, 20 minutes for yourself to meditate and to tune in can save a lot of time in the long run.
Mm. Yeah.
When you're busy trying to juggle too many things, that's when you need to just take a moment to pause.
Yeah. That moment to pause is so important. I'm not sure that people realize how important that moment to pause, to take a deep breath in. I think about how many people don't really fully breathe all the way into their body. They're breathing up here most of the time. And when you breathe up here, what happens is your heart rate increases because it's not, your whole body is not quite getting enough oxygen. And so we begin to move forward and forward and forward and forward. And at some point in time, you're going to fall because you don't have enough juice, whether it be oxygen or energy or whatever related to that. So, one last question. If you could imagine a ripple effect, someone does your work and truly awakens to their sense of who they are and their abundance and joy, and walks away with some practices that they can take after they're done working with you, what changes do you hope to see and know that are possible in how those individuals go out into community and contribute to the world?
Go out with the vibration of serving others, and they do it without any expectations, without any attachments, and people are drawn to them. They're not chasing after other people. They're in a vibration where they become magnetic. So even though they're helping other people, supposing they are, I'll use one of my clients has got this nurturing food business that she's growing. And it's where people get together and people are feeling more drawn to her.
Mm,
She's doing what she's passionate about and she believes in it and she knows it's helping others. And people are kind of like drawn to her like, because she's a magnet, because
yeah,
they feel that energy and the joy.
yeah,
And the more you kind of align to what's true for you and you have the courage to follow your path and what brings you joy, you inspire other people and they might see you. Yes, she's decided to move to the place where she's always wanted to be, by the sea. She's decided to move into a place where there's mountains, scenery. A lot of people, when they move to different places in nature, just being in a place in nature raises their vibration, and other people are starting to create, particularly in the UK, there's people wanting to create communities that are in nature where there's a kind of more of an exchange rather than a monetary feel for things.
yeah,
So people are, you know, somebody teaches you how to do something and you do something for them.
yeah.
starting to pop up more frequently. And when people start to follow their own joy and purpose, because they're doing what they want to do, they don't need to feel that grasping sort of fear energy.
Mm.
They're tuning in and they're trusting. And I know quite a few people that they don't know what's going to happen. They just trust and they surrender and they let go. And they'll just be given this perfect opportunity, you know. I happened to one of my friends, I've had to get rid of my car. And then somebody just gave her a bike in the meantime while she was between cars. And it just happened by chance. It's like,
Yeah.
because she put it out there, you know, and she just surrendered. This is what will be.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not just in the UK. There are pockets of these communities of living that has rebirthed. I think they were very popular in the 60s and then they got a bad name. And I think they're becoming more popular again because people realize that we belong in community and that we as individuals cannot do everything by ourselves. My talent is different than your talent, but perhaps my talent is a good partner for your talent. And collaboration and being in community, whether it be in a living space or a workspace or a care facility or a hospital, being in community helps us be healthy and whole, in my opinion.
And
Yeah.
yeah. And even if it's, I've got these retreats that are in person, and then I'm growing the school community as well. So
Mm-hmm.
every month I'm doing live meditations. So people have got the option to join live. And if they can't join live, I just record it and they can play it
Right.
in their time. And my next live meditation coming up, the topic is worthiness. So some of the affirmations are things like, I am worthy of a life of joy and purpose. I am worthy of being treated with kindness and respect. And it's focusing on these things, which is like a community feel. And then people can comment. So I will give this to your listeners, to
Fabulous. Thank you so much.
the link. And there's little coaching tips as well that I put in. And I've been using some of these empowering questions. I'm just going to give you one just to finish with.
Sure.
I'm going to ask you just to say when to stop. So I'll let you choose.
Sure. Sure. Yeah. So, I usually leave my podcast listeners with one or two questions to walk away from. Um, and as you're doing this, thank you, Lorraine, first of all, for being here. Our times are 8 hours apart. It is morning here on the West Coast in Washington State, and Lorraine is at the end of her day in the UK. And sometimes that's difficult to arrange, but not always. So let's have a couple of questions for people to take away with them. And then I will include in show notes how they can reach out to you should they like to and participate in your upcoming thing that you have going on. And also how they can learn more about you. I will include all of that in the show notes. So yeah,
Okay.
let's do a couple questions.
So here we go. So if you just tell me when to stop, and I'll pick one of these cards for you. Say when.
Stop.
So the first one is, what kinds of good and beautiful things am I experiencing in this moment? That's a nice one. This is good.
It
It's
is.
conscious communication.
Yeah. I find
Okay.
it interesting. I am going to comment because your new background from when you and I got together several months ago fits with my orchids, which were gifts, and my shirt. So we are well coordinated here today.
It's nice. Let's do another. Just say
Sure.
when.
And when?
What activity makes me lose sense of time?
Mm,
Oh, I would say dancing for me.
I love that one. Having a great conversation with someone that I feel like we could do this all
Mm.
day, but then it would be into the middle of the night for you. So we can't do it all day. But I will have to, at some point in time, make my way to your space over there in the UK so that we could have a conversation for much longer. Yeah. Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much, Lorraine, for being here with me. I appreciate it. I know that there will be something else that we will have that we will do together, and I will share your information with our listeners. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. It's been great
Abs-
to chat to you again.
yes, absolutely. Yeah.